If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you. All right, man. Happy Thursday. How's it going?
Going well. Crazy political week this week.
Yes, indeed.
But we got through it.
Yeah. So quickly, because we have a lot of stories, we're not going to go too deep on this. But what was your read on the results of this election day? You know, it's not the midterms, obviously not a presidential, but it's a end of the first quarter, if you will, and a way for us to kind of check the scoreboard, see where sentiment is. What was your read on things?
My read was that the Dems did very well, and I thought it was interesting. The Democratic Party has for a long time been sort of a protector of the way things used to be, or the proper procedures, and Madami on the East Coast and Gavin Newsom on the West Coast both sort of broke those playbooks and went pretty aggressively at just getting change for their base, no matter what the consequences are. And both were really successful. So I don't know. It seems like the Democrats are at least trying to fight back. And I don't know. It's going to be an interesting midterms. I think they'll probably take back the House fairly easily, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway was that maybe even less interesting than what happens between Republicans and Democrats in the midterms is going to be what happens in the Democratic primaries. Because to me, this feels kind of like the beginning of what happened as, MAGA took over the Republican Party. It's not entirely clear to me yet that Mamdani is the Trump, but it's hard to think about anyone who, at the moment, is a brighter star for the party, and is more bold in how he communicates, and I think the Democratic primaries next year. Nancy Pelosi just announced that she won't seek re-election.
I didn't see
next
that.
year.
That's good, and she's.
Yeah. So to me, it could be the beginning of a really big turnover inside of the Democratic Party, right? Because I think, to your point, the strategies and the types of candidates that were able to pick up wins this time, I think they're going to have the leverage going into the primaries. And I don't think it's the old guard, right? This doesn't feel like the Schumer-Jeffries guard at all to me. So, all right, we got a ton of stories, so let's go ahead and dig in. Starting with a few stories on the economy. I think we can move through these quickly, but inflation is kind of not much ado about nothing at the moment. And so Wall Street Journal kicks our show off today with a story about how the U.S. economy has basically defied all the doomsday predictions around tariffs. Now, I think to some degree, the biggest tariffs that everyone was the most worried about didn't really materialize, right? I mean, obviously, we've come to a trade agreement with China now. After two spats this year, neither one, took very long, right? There's too much to lose for both parties. And as we discussed last week, China's got a lot of leverage. And so, to me, yes, tariffs have made a lot of noise this year. But when we really think about which ones really would impact America in a durable way, none of them have really stuck. That's just my view on it.
Yeah, I think that's right. They have generated a decent amount of revenue for the Treasury. We'll talk later. Unclear if the U.S. Treasury will get to keep that or not. But we generated revenue, and it really didn't impact the economy in a super negative way. Minor disruptions, but not that bad.
Yeah. Okay, next story. The famous method of valuing stocks is pointing towards some rough years ahead. Anyone who has been paying attention to market analysis, the big storyline is, holy cow, we have a lot of value locked into, these 7 or so companies. They're all surging on the promise of AI. Their multiples are extremely, extremely high. And there's just the question, are we in a bubble? Many are arguing this is different from the dot-com boom. These companies actually have meaningful revenue. They are being relatively transparent in terms of what their revenue is. OpenAI and Anthropic in particular are sharing their revenue numbers. But, what's sort of your read on this, and share a little bit more about what this method of valuing stocks is?
Yeah, so this is really, it's a way to do the price earnings multiple, and it's called the Case-Shiller multiple, but it's just a judge of how valuable, how pricey or not pricey the stocks are relative to their earnings in that year. And I think it's never been as high as it is right now. So that predicts, in the past, at least, those multiples have come down. And so it usually predicts that there'll be lower returns in the next several years, as you can see from the chart that's on the screen right now. The question that I think it brings up is, is this time different? Are these tech companies on a different trajectory where they're going to be consistently able to generate earnings and cash flow with fewer people, and therefore it's worth it to pay more for those assets? And that's what I think no one can know.
Yeah, and I guess going to our next story, the thing that would lead us to question, is it different, might be the change in labor. So as you pointed out when we were reviewing the stories for today, we don't have good data on employment anymore. So I was like, well, why do we have this story here from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, right? Like, why are we looking at their layoff report? And the reason is because, what are we going to do when the government shut down? We don't have BLS numbers. Yeah, we don't have numbers. Right. So this is as good as I think we're going to get. And to your point, ADP, probably not the most trustworthy at the moment. But what's important about this story and relative to the last one is they've been doing a tally on job cuts. And in October, Challenger, Gray, and Christmas is reporting that there were 153,000 job cuts that were basically blamed on cost cutting and AI.
Yeah, and if you scroll down to the chart, so they're an outplacement firm. Like, when you get laid off, oftentimes your employer will give you 3 months, 6 months of help to find a new job. That's what Challenger does. So they've been tracking this space, and the chart here we're looking at goes back to mid 2022, so three and a half years. And there's been a lot of layoffs in the last 2 months. Kind of that combined with, we had all the hyperscalers come out, talk about their cloud business in their earnings reports last week and one week before, and they're not. There's more demand than they have supply of cloud services now because of the AI growth, and so those two things make me think that it may be different this time than the .com bubble, because there appears to be a lot of demand of people willing to pay money to use these AI tools. We'll see, but that's on one hand. On the other hand, there's humans being laid off faster than we would like.
Yes, and at some point you'd have to think that ends up having a negative impact on the economy in terms of spending. All right, the VC rundown. Lots of stories this week, starting with Tala Health securing $100 million to scale an AI-native healthcare platform. They raised this $100 million. Let's see. Did they mention who the lead investor is? So this is a holding company called Titan Holdings that I guess they build different platforms in different verticals. So they don't actually mention who else has come in from an investment perspective, but I guess Titan Holdings gets the credit as the holding company behind Tala Health.
Yeah, that's right. It's not clear where Titan got the money from, but they've this is their healthcare solution now. It's a direct-to-patient 24/7 healthcare in your pocket kind of approach. And Titan has done an enterprise IT sort of agent play. They've done a finance play. So they're really covering the biggest markets out there.
Okay. And everything they do is AI native companies to reimagine critical industries. So, smart business model. And they're not the first or the last company we'll see roll out with that kind of business model. But Tala Health is one we'll have to keep an eye on, because $100 million, that's a pretty good start. Switching over to Fierce Healthcare, Redesign Health and Mayo Clinic back surgical triage startup Corvus.
Yeah. So this is a spin out really of Mayo built it with Redesign. So pretty interesting model in that sense.
Yeah, Redesign does does a lot of like they're kind of like a venture studio, more than they are a venture firm. So they partner with organizations, find problems, and create companies and launch them. Hippocratic AI lands $126 million Series C to expand patient-facing AI agents and fuel acquisition deals. Feels like a little while since we've heard Hippocratic in the news, but they clearly have been continuing to grow in order to get this $126 million Series C round. Their valuation is now at $3.5 billion. So they're pretty big. Avenir Growth led the Series C round with backing from new and existing investors, including Capital G, which is Google's growth fund, General Catalyst, Andreessen Horowitz, Kleiner Perkins, on and on and on. And they list major health systems, UHS, Cincinnati Children's, and WellSpan Health as folks who also came into the round.
Yeah, and then further down, they list several health systems that have used Hippocratic or use it now, and they're pretty impressive. They've got a whole bunch of really strong U.S. systems. Mm-hmm. But then it's global too. They're in 6 countries. Definitely very strong participant in the healthcare as an agentic AI tool.
Yep, absolutely. All right, our friends at SteelSky Ventures lead an investment in myLaurel to redefine acute and transitional care at home. So SteelSky joins Deerfield Management and Google Ventures, accelerating the national rollout of myLaurel, bringing hospital-grade care to patient homes.
Yeah, this is a challenging space. They have good results though. And they're growing. So they're in New York and New Orleans right now and have a good track record of reducing readmissions for patients and getting what they claim is a 6-to-1 ROI for their hospital partners. So
wow, that's great.
Difficult space, but myLaurel seems to be doing well.
Yeah, and there's definitely acquirers for this if you can prove it out. Even I think on a pretty small scale. We saw that. Right in Nashville with Amedisys and some of their acquisitions they made. Okay, Boomerang Ventures leads an oversubscribed $2 million seed round investment in SiteLabs to transform independent pharmacies into frontline hubs for preventative care and research. So, an important space, but a really, really challenging space just with all of the competitive pressures, P&L pressures, PBM pressures. It's great to see someone investing and trying to support these independent pharmacies, but also I think you and I have had some experience in this space, and it's a pretty tough space.
Yeah, it's hard to get patients and health systems to sort of understand this new way that a pharmacy would interact with the health system. But it makes a lot of sense. It should work where they're preventing care gaps. They're sort of bringing in patients, trying to engage them to take better care of their health with chronic disease. It's just been hard to get adoption previously.
Yeah, exactly. So, I feel like in so many of these types of deals, the tech is truly insufficient to change sort of the modus operandi, right? Like the way that everyone currently works, and that might maybe it's $2 million to build the tech, and maybe it's $20 million to like change behavior, right?
Right.
Okay, this is a big one. CoMind raises $60 million in a Series A funding. It's a London-based firm working to build a global platform to measure key brain health indicators simultaneously and non-invasively.
Yeah. And so it's pretty exciting that you could collect data non-invasively and be able to catch things early around brain health. But it's also early. It's not clear exactly how it's going to work, but pretty exciting. I think there's a lot of talent in London, so interesting market to be doing into.
Yeah, it's where DeepMind came from. So definitely a lot of great university talent there to sort of feed this kind of deep research in AI. Okay, and I guess this is the last story, and it's not particularly like a VC deal, but it is a big deal. And it's Wall Street Journal. Sequoia Capital leader exits in VC shakeup. So Rulif Botha, who is pretty legendary for his leadership at Sequoia, has been asked to step aside amid leadership concerns and a turbulent stretch. They are replacing him with Alfred Lin and Pat Grady, who have been 2 longtime Sequoia investors. Both of those names are familiar to me. But yeah, Rulif invested in Apple, Google. He's got a legendary track record. But the world is changing, isn't it?
Yeah, transition in VC firms from one generation to the next is always challenging. And I think this yes, it was. I was surprised at the timing of it, but obviously he's out.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see what the next generation does there. Okay, moving into policy. Trump is negotiating a deal with Ozempic maker to sell some weight loss drugs for $149. Novo Nordisk, as well as Eli Lilly, would gain Medicare and Medicaid coverage for their blockbuster weight loss drugs. Obviously, we're talking about at about 15% of what they attempt to get in other markets, but these are two very, very big markets. And so getting access to that is probably very beneficial to them and keeps them on the good side of President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, getting Medicare to start allowing all the recipients to receive GLP-1s simply for weight loss, not for some other diabetes or kidney disease or something else, I think would be a huge win. And at the same time, Trump's getting the significant price compression. So it seems like a pretty interesting deal from both sides.
So that's a good story for President Trump. Maybe in a not so good story, the Wall Street Journal has been keeping up with the question of whether or not Trump's tariffs are in fact legal, based on his insistence that we are in an emergency and therefore he's leveraging emergency powers to impose these unilateral tariffs. It sounds like the Supreme Court, in their questions, raised questions about whether or not the president had alternatives and whether or not this was in fact the emergency that he presented it as.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, we won't know the ruling for a month or two. Hopefully by year end, we'll see. But from the oral arguments and the questions they asked, it seemed like everyone came away. I didn't watch it live, but everyone came away with the opinion that it was trending to where the Supreme Court would not allow the IEEPA tariffs to continue. The question is really not that. It's more like how are they going to, or are they going to make the government return the money?
Unwind them. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so it's a challenge to know how to go forward with that because you've collected a little over 100 billion. And some of those are pretty clear where an importer paid it, but other times, it came in through one group and then there was a sort of a distributor and then an end customer, and they all shared a little bit of the tariff burden, but not in a way that's easy to track. And so there's some talk about stopping it on a go-forward basis, but allowing the government to keep the money that's been collected so far. That's not great for the existing people that have been harmed, but I don't know, they did figure out some way to do that.
Yeah. So that will be interesting, and will also, I think, if it does end up being a negative outcome for Trump, will because this is such a geopolitical issue, I don't think will reflect well on sort of Trump's show of strength internationally, right? If the United States Supreme Court basically says that this move that he very aggressively did within the first 120 days of his tenure was in fact illegal. More shakeups at the FDA. George Tidmarsh, who's an FDA official, steps down as he's being sued by a drug maker who accused him of seeking a bribe and defaming a drug. So, Marty Makari's having all sorts of, in and out, transitions in FDA. Dr. Tidmarsh was hired in July to lead the agency's drug division, and, now he's out. So this is probably the third pretty high profile person that's was a Makary appointee that has had problems, and now Tidmarsh is out. So just not a great start in the first year for Marty Makary's appointments.
Yeah, no question. And it's hard to know what's true and what's not, but supposedly he tried to get a payment, and when didn't, he went on LinkedIn and started saying how the drug was not very good. So I don't know what's true and not true, but he did resign under pressure. So
yeah, that's not great. That's not great. Okay, I think we have to cover this one because we talked so much about her during the Biden administration. But Mamdani has tapped antitrust crusader Lina Khan to help lead his transition. And so, if you were wondering whether or not Mayor-elect Mamdani was going to maybe switch his tone in terms of being maybe more friendly to the business community, I would say the appointment of Lina Khan will do very, very little to make business leaders in New York City feel comfortable. You and I, we chronicled her less than successful term as the chair of the FDA. I would say part of the reason why she was maybe less successful was that she was maybe more ideological than she was practical in terms of what she focused on strategically in terms of notching wins. But now I think she's leading the transition for a mayor whose entire platform is probably a little bit more ideological than it is practical. At least we haven't seen the practical workout for how it all happens, given the game theory of the potential of high earners in the tax base of New York potentially fleeing to places in the Southeast or Texas, which I think a lot of people are predicting will happen. So, look, Mamdani continues with the bold moves that I think that feel to me like they're going to define the future of the Democratic Party. Lina Khan finds a new home.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It would be hard for me to think of someone who would be more more controversial, more of a sign to big business in New York, the big banks, that they were going to be under attack than her. So, yes, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. And then Big Food's fight against RFK Jr. is heating up. A new industry group wants to set aside the piecemeal state-by-state approach, imposing food, dye, and labeling laws in favor of federal control. And the opposition has roiled the Maha Coalition. So, I mean, the idea that this was ever going to be less than a fight against RFK Jr. is, again, we're just in this era where people, they mean what they say, and they're not sitting in the middle. They're taking strong positions because that's what wins elections, and that's what the base demands. And the Maha Coalition is, a very, very strong, national coalition that is not 100% the MAGA coalition. It's its own thing, and I think. And I think there are aspects of the Maha Coalition sort of mandate that I think most Americans would agree with, like the idea that we allow food products to be, sold to American citizens that have far more, preservatives and chemicals in them than would be allowed to be sold, across Europe and even parts of Latin America. I mean, I think the average citizen probably thinks that's something we ought to do something about. But these changes pretty radically change the delivery mechanism for big food and change the economics. And at a time where, maybe tariffs haven't hit everybody, but we know it's impacted farmers. We know that it's impacted the price of groceries. It does seem like we were always going to be heading for this fight.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I also think it's sort of a long-term shift in the culture. I mean, even if they survive this year and keep selling Fruit Loops with all kinds of, vivid colors, I think that's going to change over time. So,
all right, KFF Health News. The White House calls this 9/11 era fund wasteful. Red and blue states rely on it. What are we referring to? The Hospital Preparedness Program that has provided nearly $2.2 billion to states, territories, major cities, and other entities over the past 17 years to ready healthcare systems for the next pandemic, cyber attack, or mass casualty event. And right now, this program is squarely in the crosshairs of Russ Vought. And so it is the next thing that is potentially on the chopping block that is part of the overall infrastructure of federal support for the healthcare system. Vic, what are your thoughts on this?
It's just another source of funding taken away from health systems when they can't afford to lose funding. So preparing for bird flu or the next pandemic or cyber attack, all those things we need them to do, and there's no money to do it. So I think it's bad. But I also can see how the Republicans are going to cut it. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it really is amazing how fast, and I think this is something that it's taking everyone a little while in the industry to wrap their head around, how fast the sacred cow of healthcare has become, dinner.
Right.
It's no longer sacred. It is, you know, it's up for grabs. It's up for cuts, and the Republicans seem very, very grounded in this principle. And yes, they wrap all sorts of narratives around fraud, waste, and abuse, or delivering healthcare to non-citizens. Sure, but at the end of the day, no one looks at these things and says, "Oh, they don't impact American citizens." So, their willingness to do this may really end up long term impairing their results in elections over the course of the next 3 years. But this is the mandate that they're committed to. Yeah, shifting to payers. Humana cuts earnings outlook as medical costs surge. So we've had all the payers sort of come out, and MLR is obscenely high across the managed care organizations. I think UHG was really the only one to come out lower than 90. Humana here rises to 91.1 from 89.9. 89.9 is not great, and anything over the 90s is really pretty ugly. And so the costs are just going up across the board, especially in the government pay models.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's not sustainable over 90. I mean, that's their gross margin. They're losing money in the bottom line in that sense too.
Yeah, yeah. And Clover Health sees revenues grow 50% year over year in Q3. So Clover is a Medicare Advantage insure tech company. They've had a lot of ups and downs. They SPAC'd during the great SPAC era during COVID. It was scary as to whether or not they were going to make it, but they did end up pulling it out, I think, over the last 2 years, as they and Oscar and some of the other pretty well funded new payers found their footing, especially on revenue growth. But again, this is a story where yes, they're picking up more market share. I think especially as some of the larger national insurers are thinking about packing up their Medicare Advantage books in different states. So yes, Clover is picking up more and more, but it recorded a medical loss ratio of 93.5 in the third quarter of this year, up from 82.8% in the third quarter of last year. So it's like, yes, they have grown their revenue 50% year over year. That's certainly great. We just talked about Humana at a 91% MLR, and 93.5% is just you're just growing at all costs, it feels like to me.
Yeah, that's right. They're grabbing new members wherever they can find them to increase revenue. But many of those members, are not great members because they're very expensive. They use a lot of healthcare. So yes, I think Clover is growing quickly, but probably, getting less profitable and burning more money. So.
Yeah, and no, and in fact, they did cut down their EBITDA expectations in this article here with Fierce Healthcare. Shares the prior outlook estimated between 50 and 70 million in EBITDA, and now they estimate between 15 and 30 million. So I don't think that was received very well, even with the great revenue growth year over year. Oscar Health shares surged 8% after beating their third quarter earnings expectations. So they're in slightly better markets, I think. They are focused on ACA as well as they have a consumer employer product that's mostly sort of designed around ICHRA. They're specializing in those two markets, the ACA individual market and then the employer ICHRA market. Basically kind of the same kind of product. Oscar, I think, has always been a leader amongst these new health insurance companies, and their shares actually jumped 8% on the news. And so, I think good for them, and they're in reasonably decent lines of business, but I think a lot will play out over the course of the next two quarters now that the new prices have rolled out on the marketplace.
Yeah, I agree.
Alignment Healthcare grows Q3 revenue to $994 million and boosts 2025 outlook. Vic, tell me a little bit about Alignment Healthcare.
Yeah, so they sell technology, their software provider, to Medicare Advantage plans and other insurers. So unlike the rest of the companies in this category, they're not directly covering members as their primary business. They do have some members as well where they insure directly. So it's kind of a hybrid of software and insurance, and they're I think a little bit healthier because of that.
Okay. Moving on to health systems, Community Health Systems selling a majority interest in Tennessee joint ventures to Vanderbilt University Medical Center for $600 million. This is the Clarksville Tenova healthcare subsystem. And, VUMC is looking to grow their footprint, grow their top line. And CHS is continuing to divest in assets. And so it seems like a good fit here.
Yeah, this is a good transaction, I think, for both sides. They already were in partnership in these hospitals where Vanderbilt owned 20%, CHS 80%. So they're selling their 80% stake, and Vanderbilt knows these systems well and will operate them well.
Nonprofit health systems unveil ACA plans amid ongoing Florida Blue contract dispute. More and more disputes between the Blues and the health systems. But two public health systems in Broward County in Florida, they have launched an expansion into the ACA marketplace themselves, Memorial Healthcare System and Broward Health, which are 11 hospitals in Southern Florida.
Yeah, so this is interesting in the sense that there's a fight over these health systems are not in network for Florida Blue anymore. They could not agree on rates maybe 6-8 months ago. And so they now are creating sort of an extension to an existing health system that they had to go into ACA and compete directly against Florida Blue. So obviously this plan, 22 Health is what it's called. These health systems will be in network for that plan because it's the health systems themselves that are putting it up. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a sort of another chapter in this ongoing fight between payers and providers. In this case, it's gotten bad enough that the systems are creating their own plan or building, extending the plan they already have. Yeah.
Amwell mulls divestitures. The company is considering selling assets that could be more easily separated from the rest of the business without creating challenges for customers, executives said on a third quarter earnings call. So seems to be more of the end of the sort of the GE model. Everyone wants to see a very streamlined business, especially if you're not performing that well. Amwell is a very old school telehealth platform. And, the big telehealth platforms really have never truly taken off on the public markets, and I think have been pretty embattled. And so some divestitures seem to make good sense just to get the company really focused.
Yeah, I think it's a slowly kind of melting ice cube, Amwell. It is a generalist telehealth that is not a good combination. We'll see in a few. The vertical, focused telehealth providers are doing really well, but Amwell is more of a maybe urgent care, primary care, general, and it's hard to make money in that space.
Yeah, their revenue is falling year over year, 8%. They reported $56.3 million in revenue in the third quarter. So, yeah, if that's kind of your trend, then you probably should be looking at the assets that are not performing very well and getting those off your books.
Yeah, but I don't know where they're going to end with that. They sell things until there's nothing left.
Yes, perhaps. Moving in the other direction, Hinge Health Q3 revenue jumps 53% as the company eyes M&A, new services beyond physical therapy. So it's been a good year for Hinge Health. They IPO'd. That IPO went well, really, really strong, sort of exclusive partnership with Amazon around everything they do in muscular in the musculoskeletal space. And now that they are public and, their stock is growing well and also revenue is growing well, they're thinking about M&A and services beyond physical therapy.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the strategy that seems to be working better, is a very focused approach, in this case, physical therapy. And then from that strength, then you can expand to adjacent areas.
Mm-hmm. A name that I certainly didn't know before you shared this article. Carrum Health extends substance use disorder treatment as employers tackle costly workplace challenge. This is from Fierce Healthcare. I hadn't heard of this company, but it sounds like they're fairly large, and they work with many of the Fortune 500 companies. So, and they've been around for 11 years. So, like, why have we missed this company? Is it just because they focus on like drug testing and stuff?
Well, no, that's the thing they've added right now. That previously they have been working with large employers to sort of basically bring them a provider network that they can contract with directly. So that's been their business for 11 years. They sort of contract with the health system that wants to do knees and hips, someone else that's doing heart surgery, someone else doing cancer care, and they bring you this what they call centers of excellence network. You get great doctors at a good price, and they don't underwrite it like a payer would. They more just sort of enable this kind of direct contracting from the employer to the health system. So they've done that traditional healthcare contracting, and now they're expanding into substance abuse.
Yep. Inside Ro's GLP push with big name celebs and big pharma. So we've talked a lot about hims and hers when we talk about the big brands in the GLP-1 space. It's been a while since we've talked about Ro, but the last time we did highlight the fact that they focus less on generics and more on high profile big pharma brand deals, having inked deals with both Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk over the course of the last 12 months to bring their products to market. And they also are, working with big celebrity ambassadors like Serena Williams and Charles Barkley. So, Ro is still very much in the game and in the space, even though I think him and hers has clogged up the headlines for these big brand players. But like, what's on the horizon for Ro against the backdrop of this very, very, very competitive environment, Vic?
Yeah, I think that you said it with the celebrity endorsements. That's been the thing that they've changed in the last 6 months. They added Serena Williams and Charles Barkley. And I think the message is it's not really necessarily for very obese people, but more it's being targeted at the kind of the regular person that wants to lose 30 pounds, 25 pounds. They seem to be getting a lot of those customers. So
what's really interesting is, in my sort of library of podcasts and YouTube videos that I listen to or watch, some, maybe let's call it 10% of those are dedicated to well-being, but I would say a little bit more from the perspective of being an athlete. So this is like, Rich Roll or Dr. Mike Israetel or Andy Galpin, like those kind of folks, a little bit of Huberman, although I've kind of moved past him. I am seeing more and more where these folks are getting comfortable saying that just about everybody should be on GLP-1s. Like, it's not just for significant weight loss, because of the assistance with, other addictions and just your ability to, more easily maintain your caloric restriction goals. This is not something I'm on. I'm just reporting that it is something I'm noticing becoming less of a focus for people who are struggling with obesity or kidney disease, and more of like at this point, maybe everybody should be on these things. So I'm not on them. I don't see a need to be on them personally, but I am seeing more and more sort of widespread push for that. So that aligns with your theory around introducing, not just big name celebs, but specifically celebrated athletes.
Yeah, that's right. It sort of gives you, ego cover. Like, yeah, I need this to help, but so does Serena Williams or whatever. Mm-hmm. So does Charles Barkley.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good point.
And I think that's right. I'm not on them either, but it seems like it's turning into more of an optimization. I want to use this to really optimize my health as opposed to not be obese anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Pfizer and Novo Nordisk escalate bidding war for weight loss drug startup. The revised bids are the latest unusual twist in a fight between big drug makers over drug developer Metsera. So I thought the Metsera thing was just kind of going to Novo Nordisk, but it appears that Pfizer is also in the hunt. They need something for sure. We're going to talk about them here in a minute here. But yeah, like if you are one of these up and coming platforms with a really nice pipeline, it looks like you can bid up the leaders in the space right now.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's just been escalating. I think Pfizer originally struck the deal. I think it was a signed deal to buy them for a little over $7 billion. And then Nova came in at 9, Pfizer came in at 8 with different structuring, Nova at 10. They're bidding it up. Pfizer tried to file a lawsuit to force the company to go with the original one, which got rejected by a Delaware court. So, yeah, it's a bidding war. This is another GLP-1 technology. So it seems like that's the place where all the activity is right now.
Yeah, and while Novo is looking to maybe shore up their ship and expand their portfolio, I think for Pfizer it's probably a bit more existential, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, this is another story here that we'll skip this one and just include it in the show notes. A little bit more detail on Pfizer on their bidding war. But the story that I do want to cover here is Pfizer's profits are continuing to fall. So sales fell in the third quarter to $16.65 billion from $17.7 billion. And it's really because there's lower demand for COVID-19 vaccines. And that, I think most people believe that's going to continue to decline year over year. And so they for sure have got to find another source of meaningful revenue and growth.
Yeah, no question. And they don't have a real play in the GLP-1s now, which is why they're trying to land this deal. Pfizer's struggling. I mean, even if they get this acquisition done, they still have pretty thin R&D kind of up and coming product line.
Yes. Okay. Ozempic maker Novo Nordisk lowers their growth outlook. The drug maker says buying Metsera would differentiate its portfolio at a time of rising competition. Obviously, this organization just overhauled its leadership, had a huge sort of board dust up where the foundation effectively won out. And they're, I think the new CEO is go ahead and taking the lumps right now by revising growth down while also being very aggressive in trying to differentiate the books. And this seems like the direction that the foundation wanted the company to go in.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, they are, even though they had both Wegovy and Ozempic, they still overall are struggling. And yes, they made a bunch of changes. We'll see how they do. I think they're better positioned than Pfizer, but they're both struggling.
All right, so this is the Health and Me story for this week, and it's a story about pregnancies and C-sections. Articles from the New York Times, and the headline is, "The worst test in medicine is driving America's high C-section rate. Round-the-clock fetal monitoring leads to unnecessary C-sections, but it's used in nearly every birth because of business and legal concerns," the Times found. You dug into this article way more than I did, so what's the story here?
Yeah, so you use this fetal heart monitor to monitor the heart rate of the baby, and it is a kind of a classic healthcare situation where it seems intuitive that if the baby is, they have lower heart rate, they're struggling, you need to quickly do a C-section to get them out. But the actual science is that the heart rate varies pretty dramatically with babies. They're pretty little, and it's normal heart rate to go up and down and up and down. So even though it looks, when you're monitored 24/7 in the labor and delivery room, it looks scary, and it encourages the nurses and doctors to kind of move to a C-section faster than they really should by the evidence. And there's many studies, the Times listed several of them, I don't think it's in question. It seems like every doctor in every study agrees with it. And yet, because of the threat of lawsuits and just the sort of the attention to baby and mom health, in the moment, we keep using these monitors, even though they're the stethoscope and checking periodically every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes
Right.
is actually the preferred method. No one is doing that. And the US has far higher rates of cesarean sections. And I think everyone would agree that it's not the best way to give birth. It's sometimes necessary, but it should not be done as often if it's done in the US.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The unintended consequences are
Right.
interesting. Okay, moving into crypto. I think we got a couple stories on the crypto side this week. Ripple and MasterCard are teaming up to test stablecoin settlements on XRP.
Yeah, so this is an interesting, I mean, we're starting to see several partnerships and combinations, like old traditional, finance, TradFi, now partnering with new DeFi stuff.
Yeah, I mean, last week we talked about
ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Last week we talked about Western Union. This week, MasterCard and Ripple. Ripple's not so much a DeFi. It's pretty centralized. But Ripple was designed to work with banks and to work with TradFi. And so, it has been interesting to see that they haven't been that much in the headlines here recently. I feel like the last big thing I heard about Ripple was Bank of America, and that's been a while. So, but MasterCard is massive, right? I mean, if Ripple ends up being the stablecoin settlement platform for MasterCard, then that's a significant win for them. That's a lot of transactions globally.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Ripple was really created. I mean, it might be the fourth or fifth blockchain ever for this cross-border thing that has evolved into stablecoin. So it's good to see them, emerge.
Yeah. And JP Morgan, we continue to highlight them because, as really the leading bank in America, as they continue to move in this direction of blockchain and crypto and tokens, it just becomes undeniable that crypto is becoming a first-class citizen in the world of finance in America. JP Morgan is tokenizing their private equity fund on their own blockchain, and this move marks the bank's first step towards a broad rollout of its fund's tokenization platform. So it puts them, a little behind BlackRock. It feels like in terms of rolling things out, they're about a year behind BlackRock, but here they are. And 1 week we're hearing about them accepting Bitcoin and ETH as collateral from their institutional clients, and now they're tokenizing their own fund.
Yeah, that's right. And I think they're going to tokenize. Both JP Morgan and BlackRock are going to tokenize everything they can, all kinds of assets, because it sort of accelerates the ability to move these assets around and trade them quickly. Private markets typically are hard to trade, and so JP Morgan putting it on a tokenized blockchain, I think, would facilitate that.
Yep, of course, because that's the benefit of tokenization.
Right.
All right, moving on to Robinhood, and they are not going to allow this prediction market game to be a two-horse race between Polymarket and Kalshi. They are going to use their broad distribution base to introduce more and more prediction market capabilities on the Robinhood app. So they believe that the betting markets are a meaningful part of crypto, and I think they're right. The psychographic of the average Robinhood user probably pretty well aligns with prediction markets, and so they've got the distribution base and they've got that psychographic already loaded up with investment accounts on their app. And they've already repositioned pretty aggressively around crypto, so it makes sense that they will also be in the prediction market game.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that they do have a partnership with Kalshi, so I think several of the actual transactions end up at Kalshi, but not all of them. So
not all of them, right?
I think they also do their own. Yeah, they're sort of slowly beginning to build their own, but they're
and that's kind of been their thing. I mean, they're doing partnerships with existing platforms. They rolled out, I think it was Arbitrum is who they're rolling out their L2 with. And so, it's like, it's not their own L2 yet, but the roadmap is to make their own L2, right? Leveraging Arbitrum's open source capabilities. Right now, it's just sort of Robinhood running on top of Arbitrum. So these are, they're doing this sort of partnership, to roll products out and then eventually building out their own stack.
Yeah, I think that's right.
All right, AI rundown. Here we go. Snap's shares soar on $400 million Perplexity AI deal. Snapchat's parent stock rises as much as 25% in after-hours trading on the news. So this is interesting. It's kind of like, the B-tier social network, and I love Perplexity and I use it on a very regular basis. But it's not a foundation model. It's an app that sits on top of the foundation models, and so it's B-tier compared to the OpenAIs and Anthropics of the world. So the fact that they're aligned, and Perplexity is looking for more and more distribution, but the fact that they, are able to sort of fund a deal with Snap to the value of $400 million is pretty meaningful.
Yeah, that's right. It's a decent amount of money from Perplexity, and as the market showed, it seems like it's really good for Snap. Snap was sort of in nowhere, as far as I could tell. So this gives them a different differentiation.
Yeah, this deal, and they'll get that $400 million in cash and equity over a year. Apparently, that is equal to about 7% of Snap's 2024 sales. So that's a meaningful deal. Amazon sues to stop Perplexity from using AI tool to buy stuff. So a lot of fits and starts for these AI browsers. OpenAI rolled out its one to a pretty lackluster review. And Perplexity was really, I would say, the first mover with Comet, which is their AI browser. Most people haven't used it because you have to pay Perplexity $200 a month in order to have access to Comet. But for those who have used it, people think it's pretty incredible what it can do. Part of what it can do is it can buy stuff for you, like in an automated way. And Amazon is suing to stop Perplexity from being able to do that. So this will be an interesting suit that will have broad implications for AI browsers, period, right? I mean, if Amazon can sue, then I think all the different travel broker sites can sue. Credit card companies will be able to sue to stop, AI automation on their travel platforms. So big stakes here based on, how this suit plays out.
Yeah, I think that's right. And to me, it really is going to be a debate about where does the personal assistant aspect of these agents work. Where like I have a bot going on Amazon to buy something that I would buy myself this afternoon, but now I don't have to do it. I think that is clearly allowed versus kind of an agent that is every hour going to look at this product on Amazon and kind of waiting, chronologically recording the price every hour continuously forever. Mm-hmm. And then sort of being able to use that information kind of against Amazon on behalf of their customers, collecting data in a robotic, automated way, would not be allowed. But where that line is
yeah, exactly. I mean, where that line is completely unclear, and I think it's kind of like an all or nothing thing, right? So,
yeah, and Amazon is kind of talking out of both sides of its mouth. It has its own, of course, agents. So, yes, I think we're going to need to figure out what's accepted and what's not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think distribution and control of access to transactional platforms could end up becoming like a new moat, right? So and could in fact devalue the browser, right? You can see a world where Amazon does a deal with Anthropic, and then if you want to do AI enabled Amazon stuff, because Amazon has done this deal with Anthropic, you have to do it through the Anthropic AI agents. Right, you're not allowed to do it through other ones, and you could see how the world could kind of bifurcate in that way. Not that dissimilar to the idea of Snap doing a deal with with Perplexity, or or
Yeah.
Apple doing a deal with OpenAI, right? I mean, they're not playing with everybody. They're not allowing everybody into those environments. So we could see similar vertical plays here as well.
Yeah. What's interesting is that Amazon is usually the aggressive company. And in this case, they cannot stop Perplexity. They have tried to stop, and they've put in technical roadblocks that Perplexity has, sort of found workarounds to. So that's why they did this lawsuit. I don't know. It seems like it's going to be a difficult thing to stop.
Yeah, I mean, one of the key takeaways here is that Amazon's accusing Perplexity of committing computer fraud by failing to disclose when Comet is shopping on a real person's behalf, which is in violation of Amazon's TOS. And that seems right to me, right? It seems like Perplexity, as a value to the user, would offer to spoof, being a real person. And that would be in violation, right? If that's a core value that you're offering to your user, that is in violation of Amazon's TOS, right? And it's not that dissimilar from all these sites throwing up captchas to make sure that you're a real human and you're not a robot, right? So I mean, to me, it feels like there is a lot of precedent here around this.
Yeah, there's precedent, there's legal precedent. How to actually prevent it from occurring is not clear to me.
Yeah. Okay, OpenAI and Amazon signed a $38 billion cloud deal. So there is no monogamy in this space, right? These frontier models, they need compute, they need power, and they will be doing deals with everybody. They'll do deals with Microsoft, they'll do deals with Oracle, they will do deals with Amazon. And this is the latest one that OpenAI has announced. Huge cloud deal for Amazon.
Yeah, that's right. And OpenAI continues to commit to massive compute spending, and they'll figure out how to pay for it later.
Yeah, exactly. You have an interesting story here from Gizmodo that is opening up the story between Ilya Sutskever and Sam Altman. It feels like forever ago, but Ilya and Mira Mercati, I think, or Moravi, I can't remember her last name, but she's done a pretty large multi-billion-dollar company called Thinking Machines. Yeah. Basically, they tried to execute a coup. They had the board aligned. They fired Sam. They called him dishonest, and then the employees revolted, and Sam was reinstated, and everyone else had to go. The board, Ilya, and Mira all had to go. And this article is opening up the deposition where Ilya is explaining sort of what he and Mira were after, and what were they after, Vic?
I mean, we have said neither one of us know Sam Altman personally, but my impression, I think your impression, is that he is, let's say, aggressive, maybe questionable ethics, or he wants to win at all costs. And I think what Ilya saw and what Mira saw is he was saying different stories to different groups of employees inside OpenAI, sort of pitting them against each other. And I mean, you and I have been around a lot of high growth startups. There's often hard feelings and super aggressive people. But what they saw caused them to begin documenting it. And they assembled 52 pages of these, infractions and inappropriate behaviors over a year, and then submitted it to the board. They were talking to the CEO of Anthropic, who used to be at OpenAI too, that they all know, about combining OpenAI and Anthropic after this transition. So it's interesting sort of just to see all the back and forth. I think I came away being more confident that I don't trust Sam Altman. And at the same time, the employees, I think the answer was they already had seen that the company was transitioning to for-profit. The employees saw that Sam was going to be the best chance for them personally to make money, and they wanted that chance to continue. And so he ended up winning out of the fear and greed debate at the time.
Yeah. Fear
And
and
then
greed.
Ilya and Mira have both left and
Yeah.
doing whatever.
Yeah. I mean, all three of these people will be fine, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
but it is interesting to get a little bit of a postmortem on what actually happened there, because when it was happening, it was so crazy. Like the whole thing happened in, I feel like about a week's time. Like Sam was out,
It
and
happened in a weekend.
like Sam was out, and then
They
2 days
fired
later
him
he
on
was
a
back
Friday. He was back on Sunday night.
on Sunday night. Yeah. So it was a crazy turn of events. All right, Microsoft's AI efforts in the UAE get a big boost. The tech giant was granted approval by the United States to ship NVIDIA AI chips to the Gulf state despite security risks.
Yeah, so this is, I think, good for all sides. It is really part of the American strategy to try to bring the U.S. tech stack to the Mideast, which includes Microsoft and NVIDIA, and I'm in favor of that. And so this is sort of the first big deal that's come out of all those trips that David Sachs and Trump and Bessent and everyone in the Mideast. And I think that's good. Maybe a few will slip over to China, but in general, I think we can trust the U.A.E. to keep the chips in the U.A.E. because they want to use them themselves.
Yeah, I mean, in the reconfiguration of sort of the global order, especially economically, the UAE to me feels like a middle ground. I don't associate security risks with the UAE at this point. You know what I mean? I just view the UAE as one of the big future centers of international commerce. And certainly there's going to be a lot of tech innovation that comes out of the UAE. And so having Microsoft have the ability to build out data centers there actually feels like a strategic imperative to have a foothold there, because China will, right? I mean, it's like, and I think if, people in America, if you haven't been to some of these other regions to sort of understand, it's not like China or the US. You'll go there and there'll be like a Google building right next to a Tencent building. It's just fair, open game for competition. It's not like it is in America where you can't buy a Huawei phone, or in China where you can't use Google, right? Like in our respective countries, there is a very, very strong blackout on the other countries' sort of commercial products. But in all these middle ground countries, they are just taking the best of both. And if we aren't there competing, we're going to lose out, because that's like the future of the economy of the world.
Yeah.
So
that's what I think. I mean, I think American companies can compete pretty well and win, but only if we allow them to do so.
Yes, they have to be allowed, and we have to be more realistic about what's actually a security risk versus just, maybe old school thinking about what the Middle East really represents. All right. OpenAI wants brands to allow their mascots to appear in Gen AI videos. So Sam Altman is suggesting that marketers could eventually charge for the use of their beloved characters in its Sora 2 text-to-video app. And he's just trying anything he can to get people to give them their IP. Of course, I hadn't even read this, but Ronald McDonald was who I was thinking about immediately. Being allowed to be used inside of Sora 2. So he's just trying to figure out the business model in real time.
Yeah, real time in public with little preparation.
Yes, clearly. After he launched it and then realized he had to walk it back after the family of Martin Luther King was like, hey, maybe you're not allowed to make all these images of the great patriarch of our family. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Ronald McDonald, there aren't a lot of brand ambassadors that the brand owner would feel comfortable just letting loose in the public internet to see what people make up on Sora. I don't know exactly what brand would fit with that, but it's be limited.
It goes way against brand 101, right? So maybe in the future, brands won't matter in that way, and it will be more important for them to have distribution through these apps like Sora. But today, protecting your brand is still a really, really important thing, right?
Right.
Anthropic lands Cognizant as an enterprise AI customer. The professional services firm becomes one of the AI startup's 3 largest customers and will soon roll out Anthropic's Claude model to its 350,000 employees. So Cognizant, a tech-forward consulting firm, global, but very, very strong base in Europe and the UK. and they've chosen Claude. So Anthropic continues to make their progress in the enterprise.
Yeah, that's right. And that is true. Anthropic continues to do well. And then I think this is just another sign that the AI wave is beginning to filter through corporate America, or maybe global corporate, and getting a lot of usage. So I think it's not so much a bubble.
No, I mean, I've told you I don't think it's a bubble. Now, I'm not analyzing the valuations very much.
Yeah.
But to me, I think the real thing is like, I think for people who have used it, gotten over the emotional identity attachment, and have actually realized just how much it's going to help them get done, and how much more it's going to enable them to do. If you've done that, it's hard to look at this wave knowing right now the technology is the worst it will ever be, right? Mm-hmm. And say its value relative to the value of old world economic engines is not appropriate, right? Because it's going to continue to disrupt and change all of them, and it's going to be what's embedded inside of robots and automated things in the world of bits once that takes over, right? And so
yes,
to me, I'm like, it's so different from the .com era, right? There's nothing pets.com about this.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
All right, penultimate story. For podcasters, a voice clone is a double-edged sword. Are AI replicas a boon for productivity or a betrayal of the bond with listeners? So I just got done saying like how much they help you get done. And yet, Vic, we have not had a single conversation about whether or not we would replace ourselves with an AI clone. We do, we're well over 160 episodes of the show at this point. So I think we probably have, and these are like not short shows, they're hour-long shows. So we probably have sufficient data to create our own AI version of the show and just feed it a bunch of news stories and have it generate but like we've never even talked about that. So I guess maybe a question just for you, like, why has that never been something you've brought up to me?
Well, the reason I think we do the show is to process the news as it's coming in with each other. And then from my view, the audience gets to listen to that and they also get educated. But it's valuable for me personally in being able to do my job tomorrow. And there's no question that we could clone our voices. I mean, you need 10 to 12 minutes, and we have 160 times 60. So we have way more than enough. And it's interesting, in this article, various podcasters are concerned that the audience has grown to be loyal to them, and they believe and I think it's true, the curation of news and the interpretation is what people are looking for when they come. It's not just like reading the newspaper. There's interpretation and putting it in context for the audience. And there's a trust that builds up over time that's associated with the voice and the accent and all of that. The podcasters in this article are talking about how it is a hassle to have to re-record a segment because something happens in the background. I mean, we know that there's
we've done that.
We mostly just don't worry about the quality because I don't want to record the same segment again.
That's right.
But if that's all you do, you end up recording an entire 15-minute segment again.
Yeah.
Or you're traveling and you're not in a place where you can really easily do it. So for that ad hoc thing, they're interested, but not just to sort of fully just let it go. Because they have their identity in like, this podcast is me and I'm the podcast and my listeners want me. I think you and I should consider it not necessarily to do as a replacement for the live podcast, but in adjunct ways. Like, how are we communicating this technology in other ways? Or, I teach an entire fundraising class to the portfolio, and it's a lot of value, but it's also a ton of time.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I was thinking is maybe I could take that content and be able to offer it, instead of once a year for 6 weeks and everyone has to be raising money at that exact time, that they could opt in and take my class from a voice that sounded like me, talking about the same content, whenever they wanted to. They could do it at 10 at night if they wanted to. There's use cases like that I think are interesting, but I don't know that it was right for our purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, that's how I think about it. What's your perspective?
I think, well, first of all, I think all your thoughts are really good on it. I think for me, that there's some, I totally agree. I do this for my own thought process because it helps me from an investing perspective. It helps me from the ability to advise portfolio companies, all those types of things. And I do think that there is some sense of trust that I'm looking to build with our listeners, that every week you and I are doing the work to actually understand this and know this, as opposed to just produce something for them, right? Because like weirdly, I feel like we don't do this show in order to have like a big audience. We do this show in order to have a very deep audience, right? Meaning if we have a listener, I want them to have a respect for me and you and be able to reach out to us and be like, hey, that thing you said on this show about this, XYZ, right? And we're not going to be able to guarantee that if we outsourced the show, and we just sort of assume people like listening to your voice and my voice, right? And so, yeah, it's really never come up. I think about using AI in a million different ways, but this is just not. It's just not one of them. So, something I'm sure that we will revisit over time as more and more AI content, AI podcasts are generated. The quality gets better and better, and maybe consumers just want more of that. But at the moment, it's not a priority.
Yeah, I mean, where I have experienced it with some success as a user, there's a lot of podcasts that are, whether it's Notebook creating a podcast or it's kind of homegrown and then pushed out there as a podcast, where it's typically a male and a female voice talking about a topic.
Yeah.
And it's pretty helpful in I can learn about something on the drive home in a way that's much more effective than trying to read it. I don't have the time to read through something.
Right.
And I get the conversational piece. I ingest it a little bit better. But it's not pretending that they're real people. And to me, that's a difference. Like building trust with the audience and some level of, maybe not authority, but credibility in the market. And then tricking the audience or pretending like it's me when it's really not me. I think that is counter to what we're trying to do. So it doesn't really fit with that.
Agree. All right, final story. Wall Street Journal, why every family needs a code word. Authenticating the voice on the other end of the line is critical in an age of deepfakes. And so this is kind of the other side of the coin, but the same underlying power of this technology, right? We talked about Sora leveraging, big brands. We talked about podcasters outsourcing the actual work of producing the podcast themselves. But then, of course, we have to talk about the malicious aspects of this, which is things are now getting good enough that someone could call our loved ones and have somebody that looks just like us that ends up sharing critical information, right?
Yeah, I mean, the most common scam is, your grandson calls you on the phone and says, I'm in trouble, my car broke down, and I need you to send some money so I can get my car fixed. Or it's even worse, that they're taken hostage or whatever, like they're in some kind of dangerous situation, and it will sound just like them. It does sound just like them. You cannot tell from the voice inflection, and typically they have grabbed all the social media stuff, so they know where they are traveling or that they go to college at this place or whatever. And so what you need is some kind of code word that's not on their social media post or that only the family members know, so that you can tell if it's really your grandson or granddaughter or not.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I think it's important to tell people about this because everyone needs to have something.
Yeah, and also teach what you need to learn. I like.
Yeah. I don't have one with my family.
I've
been
got it on my.
trying to get them to do it, and they will not listen to me.
I know. I that's the biggest issue, right? Is just like getting everybody else to buy in that like it's actually really important to do. Do it before you need it. No one thinks you're going to actually need it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, man. Great show. And I think next week we're back in the studio together. Is that right? I'm in Nashville next week.
I can't keep track of your schedule, but I'm here.
I'm in Nashville next week.
Okay, good. Yes.
All right, awesome, man. Well, I look forward to seeing you then.